Hello and welcome to the Shiterature Podcast. This is the second episode, and honestly, it's been a busy week, but I'm functioning. So today's episode is The Dragon, the Princess, and Navigator Knight. Let's go. I do not wish to marry the prince, the princess said, clearly on the edge of her tether. Did I not make that clear the last 3 times I tried to run away? She said venomously, turning away from the queen. I do not understand why you protest so, dear. Marriage will be good for you. Once married, you have a kingdom, security, and responsibilities to crown you, Marina said with a slight smile. I already have a kingdom and security. You're taking it away from me by sending me off to somewhere I don't know, Aurelia said, as if talking to a child. I will admit it is difficult at first, even for me. But after you get used to it and are ready for the role, it's a delight. You will be a lady of the high classes, living in utmost luxury, having your every want catered to. Marina's tone didn't change. She kept up her slight smile, impervious to the emotion that rolled off her daughter. And if my want is something else? Aurelia asked sharply. Will that be fulfilled? Anything, my dear, whatever your mind can conjure up, the queen said reassuringly. She did not know what was about to go down. Then, mother, the princess said, I wouldn't like to marry at all. It's quite simple, isn't it? Her mother made a noise of disapproval. Now, darling, that's not exactly ladylike, is it? And look at your rooms, so tidy, unkempt. I'll send someone in to clean them while you're asleep. You need to start behaving, Aurelia, she said, and with a swish of her skirts left the room. Zia! Aurelia snapped, calling out to her best friend and personal assistant. She was getting out of here, ladylike be damned. Yes, your highness, Thea asked softly. You can call me by name, Thea. We're alone now. I need a way to get out of here, Aurelia whispered, deathly quiet but cutting. They're all up on their high horse, marriage and kids and everything. What they don't realize that is how someone wouldn't want that. Duties, responsibilities, kingdoms. I'm fine with it all, but is it too much to ask to be treated as more than a prop to a legacy? There is a way, but it's quite dangerous. And what is it? Well, I've heard of a dragon who's in the trade. Has an innocence policy, a paper trail thing, something, and a pretty extensive safety policy, but he specifically takes away princesses to the land beyond the mountains when they asked him, so that no one can bother them. I have it on good authority that he goes out of his way to protect people like us. How do you know? He casts an illusion over royalty, but since the commoners are less strict about these things, he just comes and goes. I've seen him at barbecues here and there. Are they? I never really knew that. The princess smiled. How about I just live with you then? We live as common people in the kingdom together till the end of our days. Only dragons can disable the magic around you that enables everyone to know where you are. You'll be found out within a day or two at best. Besides, the dragon doesn't let you take anyone along. I mean, look, people can find out. The dragon could then be killed, all the princesses taken back, and the hideout impossible to use in the future. Oh my, I cannot believe the lengths they would go to. It would be heartbreaking leaving you. Fine, send a message to this dragon. No, you know what? I'll do it myself. I'll have to get used to doing that anyway. And that's how 2 days later, Thea was hauling 2 buckets of meat up the stairs to Aurelia's tower. It was also how words smeared in meat appeared on the roof of the castle. 1 week later, a dragon stood by her window. Princess, I got your message. We don't have much time, so listen carefully. You'll be sitting on my back, holding on tight. Halfway along, the magic that tracked you up and told everything to the king and queen about you will be taken off. You may feel a jolt, but don't panic. It's perfectly safe. Don't let go of my spike under any circumstances. You'll be good to go. Aurelia then turned to Thea. You just fastened her cloak and kissed her. I'll miss you, she said. Don't, Aurelia dismissed, and hiking up her nightgown, climbed onto the windowsill, got on the dragon's back, waved to Thea one last time, and rode off into the darkness. Just like the dragon said, she felt a jerk halfway through. And soon enough, she noticed a difference. She felt free, happy. And even though she was sitting on the back of an extremely slim dragon, holding on to his spikes by her fingers, she felt more secure than she had in days. No one could spy on her. No one knew where she was. She was out of here. She was safe. The wind whipped against her face as the dragon flew, almost as if she was a little baby. It seemed to sing to her, and adjusting her grip, she leaned against the dragon's spike with her full weight. The wind lulled her to sleep in no time. When she woke up, she was quite sore. The bed wasn't soft and the flight was rough and the cave was rocky, but it was clean and well lit. A small stand of every conceivable type of clothing stood by the wall, with a suit of armor by the door. Her bed was a small one, and her room was windowless, but she felt more at ease in this dragon's lair than her own house. That probably should make a point about her castle, but she didn't have time to think about that. She got out of bed and walked out of the room. The dragon was curled up around a rock, his tongue smoking lightly. Good morning, sir, she greeted him, unsure of how to address him. Hello, my dear. I don't know what you would like to wear or what you'd like to do, but I have quite a few options. I put them in your room. What would you like to eat? We'll have to hunt, of course, but I can help you do it till you get used. When the dragon was so careful of her needs to ask her what she wanted and how she wanted it, she sat down on the hard stone settee with a thump and promptly began to cry. After a lifetime of choices being made for her, everyone telling her how to act and how to behave, she was finally allowed to do as she liked. She drew in a shaky breath and looked up. The dragon stretched out a bony wing to caress her back, and thus the first day of her new lease of life began. Her life wasn't a bed of roses anymore. It was grueling hard work, but she learned to enjoy doing everything herself. It was a new definition of freedom and independence. She also started wearing different types of clothes. She learned to fight. She also learned that everything isn't segregated by who you are and stuff that her mother deemed feminine could go together with fighting. And one day, when it all got too much, she took a shard of glass and hacked off her long hair. She learned to love herself. She learned to live without Thea, the fresh wound now becoming an old ache. There wasn't a price demanded for her freedom, but Thea was the price for her freedom. Her freedom for the cost of never seeing Thea again. They would probably question her, scare her or torture her within an inch of her life till she confessed about the plan. But she just assumed that Thea was gone. She would never see her again and carried on. One day, a prince arrived at the foot of the mountain, wounded. He clearly did not know how to navigate through the wilderness. The only things that pointed towards him being a prince were the royal insignias on his shoulders. Upon checking, she discovered a fact that she thought would ruin her life. He was the same prince she was told she'd be marrying. So, taking out a dagger, she held it against his neck and pushed him to the wall. I am not coming back with you, understand? She says with clenched teeth, her knuckles straining as she tightens her hold on the dagger. His forehead was covered with a rapidly growing sheen of sweat. I'm not asking you to, he said with a shaky voice. Why are you here then? I need help. They'll catch me any moment. Wait here. Let me call the dragon. And if you even think of moving anywhere, I will make good on that dagger promise. The dragon slithered into the passageway, poking out his forked tongue at the prince. He had retained many of his snake-like habits. Asking Aurelia to bring him the medical kit from her room, he undid the location spells. A group of soldiers in the forest was now going to be aimlessly running around in circles. Except one night. This night is going to have significance in the story later. Just know that one night, in the company set out to find the prince, had not lost the trail. Now that Aurelia had discovered that the prince was just a normal person, rather than an idea put into her head, she found it quite easy to make friends with him. He was just like her, pushed into the roles deemed appropriate because he was a prince. He had a sense of humor, a knack with the ladle, and had a fresh, ever-smiling disposition. He also missed someone greatly, a knight, according to him, just like she missed her Tia. She didn't know how many days passed living in their little bubble. She did so many things that the passage of time seemed to vanish. Her face had laugh lines, and it didn't seem like the world was ending when she got something on her face. Her room was hers, not just in name but in terms of how she could keep it. Her friends, other rescued princesses, some princes, happy living with each other, content not to live life in a constant state of vigilance. Mountain creatures, smaller dragons, were the friends she made herself, and not the acquaintances that someone else decided she would be having. All that changed when the night turned up on the doorstep. She thought no one could know where she was. What was she doing here? She pointed to a vantage point on a rocky ledge and, taking out her bow, pointed it at the knight, aiming for the weak spot in his armor. However, she saw the prince running towards him and stopped short. Who was he? On seeing him, the knight had taken off his helmet, falling prey to intense head ruffling. She got down from where she was standing, striding closer to see what happened. Dylan, the prince, was smiling at something the knight said to him. Though this was something that would seem ordinary, she watched in awe as they seemed to be perfectly in sync. The moment almost seemed too intimate for her to be watching it. Then the knight said something that made Dylan shriek with laughter and jump into his arms. The knight's eyes focused on her and he let Dylan go. Who's she? He asked. Aurelia, pleased to meet you, she introduced herself. And you are? Diyar, he said, standing tall. How'd you find me? Well, I just knew, Diya smiled. And what are you going to tell everyone when I refuse to come back? Dylan asked him, his head cocked to the side. Well, he started, smiling. I will go back, bruised and bloodied. I'll tell them that I was too late, that the dragon just killed you in a merciless massacre, and that I was closed. And to atone for my sins, I will be retiring to the land beyond the mountains and live out my life for the rest of my days. He ended with a poker face that elicited a laugh out of all three of them. Hey, if you're going back, can you bring back someone else? Who is it? Well, she's called Thea, she started, telling him about how Thea told her about the dragon and how Thea was a constant cause of concern for her now. Say no more, I'll find her, Diyar said gallantly. True to his word, the next time he came back, he was carrying an unconscious figure on a horse, Thea. She was bruised and battered, but she was now with Aurelia. And maybe things would be better now. As Dylan curled into Diyar's side against the backdrop of the mountain sunset, and the dragon worked on relaxing his terms, and Aurelia looked at Thea's sleeping body on the bed, a surge of hope shot through them. Their new life seemed exciting, and this was a great way to begin it. Thank you. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. Leave a comment below and tell me what you thought. In other news, the podcast Instagram is up and I am leaving the link in the description box below. So be sure to check it out.